Yogi Berra once said, it's deja vu all over again. It seems to be a very apt description of this time of year we're in right now. Here we sit right before Rosh Hashanah, thinking about how we're going to change this year, what we will do differently this year, the things that we didn't do last year that we're going to get right this time. It might feel very familiar to us, since last year at this time we probably said the exact same thing. What is an approach that will enable us to this year actually be different? I think there might be an answer found in this week's Parsha. Rashi tells us at the very beginning of the Parsha, PARSHAS NITZAVIM, when he says, you're still standing here today. Why do we start this Parsha right after last week's Parsha, Kisavo, when we had the curses? Why does Moshe specifically say this line, here you are standing here today, right after those curses were given? So Rashi says something very interesting, and he says that after the curses, the Jewish people felt totally depleted and despondent and broken. They asked themselves, how can we survive this? This is crazy. Look at these horrible things that were said about us. And to comfort them, Moshe says, look, Atem NITZAVIM hayom, you're still standing here today. You've done a lot of bad things in the past. Your parents, grandparents, a lot of mistakes in the past. And yet, look, you're still here. You made it this far. You're standing here today. Ultimately, I will never forsake you. That's what Moshe is explaining God is telling the Jewish people. And interestingly, there's a powerful question that the Shem Mishmuel quotes from the Klei Yakar, that basically Moshe is saying, you made it this far, you're going to be okay, don't worry about it. So the question is, does this kind of statement from Moshe, does this undermine the Tochacha? Does this undermine the curses that the Jewish people were given? There's this implied idea that you can make these mistakes, but ultimately you're always going to be okay. If that's the case, how inspired am I going to be to avoid ever making a mistake when I know I can simply just fix it? Am I really incentivized to act in the appropriate way when Moshe tells me, look, you're still here today, you're gonna be just fine always? Does this imply perhaps that these curses are just an empty threat? And in Parshas Vayelech, in next week's Parsha, the pasuk says that because Hashem is not within us, because the verse says, because Hashem is not within us, when He's not there, bad things happen. And God ultimately, it feels like He conceals His face. The Rebbe of Pashishcha says that this very statement that God is not within us is itself a sinful way to think. When we think that we're so lost, when we're in the state of despair that Hashem He's not in us anymore, that's a horrible, horrible mistake. When in reality, he says, we all have that divine spark within us, the Shekhinah. We have God Himself within us. And the Shem Mishmuel says that after the hearing the curses, the Jewish people mistakenly thought what that meant was that Hashem's presence had departed from them, that there was no longer that godly spark within us. We were lost. Losing their divine spark, they became despondent, assuming that they would inevitably always fail. This then is why Moshe is appeasing them here, telling them, you're still here. Despite everything you've done wrong, ultimately the Almighty has not and will not forsake you, because Hashem is always with you. Armed with this knowledge, the Shekhinah is always with us, and the dveikus, the connection we always have with God, no matter what, no matter how hard we fall, we will never despair from doing tshuva. Moshe, therefore, is not giving them a free pass. He's not giving them a license to transgress whenever they want. All he is doing is telling them that they cannot ever despair because they're still here. Not that they're still here, but Hashem is still here with them, never to abandon them. Have a beautiful Shabbos, beautiful Rosh Hashanah. We should all be written and sealed in the Sefer HaChaim.